A wealthy Texas rancher, notorious for his weekly conquests, finds his world turned upside down when he falls for the one woman who sees through his facade, a brilliant black woman whose hidden past threatens to destroy them both. The morning sun bleeds copper across the Texas plains as dust swirls around the hooves of a magnificent stallion. The rider dismounts with practiced ease, his boots hitting the wooden porch of the Silver Dollar Saloon with a hollow thud that echoes through the empty street. This is Beaumont, Texas, 1885, where oil money flows as freely as whiskey, and a man's reputation can be bought with the right price. Inside the saloon, broken glass crunches under expensive leather boots. A shattered mirror reflects fragments of a face, handsome, weathered, but hollow around the eyes. The scent of stale perfume and spilled bourbon hangs heavy in the air, mixing with something else. Regret, perhaps, or maybe just the bitter taste of another meaningless night. James "Big Jim" Caldwell runs his fingers through dark hair streaked with premature silver. At 35, he owns half the county, but this morning, staring at the wreckage of last night's revelry, he feels poorer than the day he arrived in Texas with nothing but a horse and a dream. The problem isn't the broken furniture or the angry husband who threw the chair. The problem is the emptiness that gnaws at him like a hungry wolf, growing larger with each conquest, each meaningless liaison that leaves him more isolated than before. 3 days later, Jim stands in the dusty main street of Beaumont, watching a crowd gather around the new general store. The building itself is unremarkable, weathered wood and glass windows that catch the afternoon light. But the woman arranging bolts of fabric in the display window makes him forget to breathe. She moves with deliberate grace, her full figure draped in a deep blue dress that complements her rich dark skin. When she turns, her face is striking, high cheekbones, intelligent eyes, and a mouth that suggests both kindness and steel. This is Evangeline Washington, though Jim doesn't know her name yet. What he does know is that she's unlike any woman he's ever seen. But it's not just her beauty that stops him cold. It's the way she handles a leather-bound ledger, her fingers tracing entries with the precision of someone who understands numbers, business, power. In her other hand, she holds a brass key, ornate, old, clearly not meant for the simple lock of a general store. Jim approaches, his usual confidence faltering. "Ma'am, I don't believe we've been introduced." Evangeline looks up, and her gaze cuts through him like a blade. "Mr. Caldwell?" Her voice is honey over steel. "Your reputation precedes you." The dismissal in her tone stings more than it should. Jim touches his hat brim. "I hope not all of it's true. I hope more of it is false than you realize." She returns to her ledger, effectively ending the conversation. As Jim walks away, he notices something that makes his pulse quicken. The brass key in her hand bears an engraving, a distinctive rose pattern he's seen before, though he can't place where. That evening, Jim sits in his study, a glass of bourbon untouched on the mahogany desk. The house around him is a monument to success, imported furniture, oil paintings, Persian rugs. But tonight it feels like a mausoleum. He pulls out a wooden box from his desk drawer, one he hasn't opened in years. Inside, wrapped in faded cloth, is another brass key. The same rose pattern, the same intricate metalwork. His father's key, the only thing left from the old homestead before the fire took everything. The memory hits him like a physical blow. He was 12, watching flames consume the small ranch house while his father clutched this key, muttering about the truth being buried where roses bloom. Jim had dismissed it as the ravings of a dying man, but now he rides out to the old homestead the next morning. Nothing remains but a stone foundation overgrown with wild roses, roses that shouldn't grow in this soil, in this climate. But there they are, thriving in defiance of nature, their roots deep and strong. Kneeling among the thorns, Jim searches until his fingers find what his father meant. a small metal plate, nearly buried, with a keyhole that matches his brass key perfectly. Before Jim can investigate further, the thunder of approaching horses interrupts his discovery. Sheriff Marcus Webb rides up with 2 deputies, their faces grim under the brims of their hats. "Jim." Webb's voice carries the weight of old friendship and new suspicion. "Heard you were sniffing around out here." "It's my family's land, Marcus. Last I checked, that wasn't a crime." Webb dismounts, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. "Depends on what you're looking for. Some things are better left buried." The tension crackles between them like heat lightning. These 2 men grew up together, fought together, built this town together. But money and power have a way of poisoning even the deepest wells. "You know something about this place," Jim says, not making it a question. "I know enough to tell you to walk away. There are people in this town with long memories and short tempers, people who won't appreciate you digging up the past." "What people, Marcus?" Webb's jaw tightens. "The kind that own banks, and newspapers, and judges." He pauses, letting the threat sink in. "The kind that could make life very difficult for a certain general store owner who's caught your eye." The mention of Evangeline sends ice through Jim's veins. "Leave her out of this. Then leave the past buried." Webb remounts his horse. "Some secrets are worth more than the truth, Jim. Remember that." As the sheriff rides away, Jim realizes he's crossed a line he can't uncross. Whatever his father hid here, powerful people want it to stay hidden. And somehow, Evangeline is connected to it all. That night, Jim returns to the homestead under cover of darkness. The brass key turns easily in the hidden lock, revealing a small compartment lined with oiled leather. Inside, he finds documents that make his blood run cold: deeds, bills of sale, and a contract bearing his father's signature, a contract selling not just land but people. The papers detail the purchase and transport of enslaved families, including one entry that stops his heart. Washington family, mother, father, daughter Evangeline, age 8. His father, the man he'd idolized, had been a slave trader. But there's more. A letter in his father's handwriting, dated just before the fire. "I cannot live with what I've done. The money is blood money, every dollar of it. I've hidden the proof where the roses bloom, hoping someday someone will make it right. The Washington girl, she's the key to everything. Her family died because of my greed, but she survived. If she ever returns, she deserves to know the truth. She deserves everything I stole." Jim's hands shake as he reads the final line. The Caldwell fortune belongs to her. The next morning brings news that chills Jim to the bone. Evangeline's store has been vandalized, her windows smashed, her merchandise scattered in the street. She stands amid the wreckage, her face a mask of controlled fury, but Jim can see the fear beneath. "Who did this?" he demands, but she won't meet his eyes. "People who don't want me here," she says simply. Jim kneels to help gather scattered books, and that's when he sees it. A photograph tucked between the pages of a ledger. A family portrait, a man, a woman, and a young girl with Evangeline's eyes. On the back, in faded ink, "Washington family, 1870. "You know," he says quietly, "you know about my father." Evangeline's composure cracks for just a moment. "I know enough." "Then you know I have something that belongs to you." She looks at him then, really looks at him, and he sees a lifetime of pain in her dark eyes. "What I know, Mr. Caldwell, is that some debts can never be repaid." Before he can respond, she's gone, leaving him standing in the ruins of her store with the weight of his family's sins pressing down on him like a stone. That evening, Jim finds Evangeline at the old cemetery on the hill overlooking town. She stands before 3 simple graves, her silhouette stark against the dying light. "They're buried here," she says without turning. "My parents, my little brother, died of fever on the ship your father put them on." Jim approaches slowly, the documents from his father's hiding place heavy in his coat pocket. "I found his papers. All of them. I know what you found." Her voice is steady, but he can hear the tremor beneath. "I've been waiting 27 years for someone to find them. You came back for revenge." She turns then, and her smile is sad and beautiful and terrible. "I came back for justice. There's a difference." She tells him the truth then, how she survived the ship, how she was raised by abolitionists in the North, how she educated herself and built a small fortune of her own, how she returned to Beaumont not for revenge, but to reclaim what was stolen and to build something better from the ashes. "The store is just the beginning," she says. "I want to build a school, a place where children like I was can learn and grow and become more than what the world expects of them. And you need the Caldwell money to do it. I need what's rightfully mine to do it." Jim pulls out the documents, holds them out to her. "Then take it, all of it." But Evangeline doesn't reach for the papers. "It's not that simple, James. There are people in this town who will kill to keep these secrets buried. People who've built their own fortunes on the foundation of what your father did." The next morning brings a visitor Jim never expected. His business partner and closest friend, Thomas Hartwell. Thomas has been like a brother to Jim, the one person he trusted completely. But the man who sits across from him now wears the face of a stranger. "I hear you've been playing archaeologist," Thomas says, his usual warmth replaced by something cold and calculating. "Thomas, do you have any idea what you're risking? What we're all risking?" The truth hits Jim like a physical blow. "You knew, you've always known." Thomas doesn't deny it. "My father was your father's partner in more than just cattle, Jim. Half the founding families of this town built their wealth the same way. You think the Webbs got their land through honest work? The Masons? The Clarks? So you're all in on it. We're all protecting what we've built, what our children will inherit." Thomas leans forward, his eyes hard. "That woman is a threat to everything we've worked for, everything we are. She's the rightful owner. She's a former slave with delusions of grandeur." The words hang in the air like poison. "And if you don't handle this situation, we will." The threat is clear, and Jim realizes that his oldest friend has become his most dangerous enemy. Worse, he understands now why Evangeline has been so careful, so guarded. She's not just fighting for justice, she's fighting for her life. That night, Jim stands at the crossroads of his life, literally and figuratively. The actual crossroads outside town, where 4 paths meet under a canopy of stars, but also the crossroads of his soul. In one direction lies everything he's ever known: wealth, status, the respect of his peers. Thomas has made it clear: destroy the documents, convince Evangeline to leave town, and life can continue as it always has. The Caldwell name will remain untarnished, the fortune intact. In the other direction lies the truth and the destruction of everything he's built his identity on. Giving Evangeline what's rightfully hers means admitting his father was a monster. It means losing his fortune, his standing, possibly his life. It means becoming an outcast in the only home he's ever known. Evangeline could simply disappear. Accidents happen on the frontier. People vanish. Problems solve themselves. The weight of the choice presses down on him like the vast Texas sky. He thinks of Evangeline's courage, her dignity in the face of hatred and violence. He thinks of the children she wants to teach, the future she wants to build from the ashes of the past. And he thinks of the man he's been, empty, hollow, searching for meaning in meaningless conquests. The man who changed women like clothes, never understanding that what he was really searching for was himself. The decision is made for him the next morning when he finds Evangeline's store burned to the ground. She stands in the street, watching the last of the flames die, her face a mask of grief and rage. "They came in the night," she says without looking at him. "Gave me 5 minutes to get out." Jim's hands clench into fists. Who? Does it matter? They all wear the same face in the dark. But Jim knows it matters. He knows because he sees Thomas watching from across the street, sees the satisfaction in his former friend's eyes. This is a warning, a demonstration of power. Next time, Evangeline might not get 5 minutes. "Come with me," Jim says urgently. "My ranch. You'll be safe there." Evangeline laughs, but there's no humor in it. "Safe? In the house built with my family's blood money? I don't think so." "Then where? They'll come for you again. Let them come." Her voice is steel wrapped in silk. "I'm not running anymore." But Jim can see the fear beneath her bravado, can see the way her hands shake as she watches the smoke rise from the ruins of her dreams. She's brave, but she's not invincible, and the men arrayed against her have no conscience, no mercy. That night, he makes his choice. The confrontation comes at dawn in the main street of Beaumont. Jim stands alone, the documents in his hand, facing Thomas and 6 other men, the founding families of the town, united in their determination to protect their secrets. "Last chance, Jim," Thomas calls out. "Walk away from this madness. The only madness here is thinking you can bury the truth forever." Sheriff Webb steps forward, his badge catching the morning light. "James Caldwell, you're under arrest for disturbing the peace and making terroristic threats." "What threats?" "The threat to destroy this town with your lies and fabrications." Jim almost laughs. They're not even pretending anymore. "These aren't lies, Marcus. These are your father's own records, your grandfather's signature on bills of sale. Forgeries," Thomas says smoothly, "obviously planted by that woman to extort money from honest families." The crowd that has gathered murmurs agreement. These people have built their lives on a foundation of lies, and they're not about to let the truth destroy what they've created. But then Evangeline steps out of the crowd, and everything changes. She's not alone. Behind her come others, black families, Mexican families, poor white families who've been pushed to the margins of Beaumont society. People who've been waiting for someone to stand up to the power structure that has kept them down for generations. "You want to arrest someone for disturbing the peace?" Evangeline's voice carries across the street like a bell. "Arrest the men who burned down my store. Arrest the men who've been terrorizing anyone who dares to speak the truth." "You have no proof," Webb begins. "I have this." Evangeline holds up a photograph, the same one Jim saw in her store, but now he can see what he missed before. In the background, barely visible, is a young man, Thomas's father. "And this." She produces a letter, yellowed with age. "Written by your own father, Sheriff Webb, detailing his participation in the slave trade, hidden in the courthouse basement for 30 years. The crowd stirs uneasily. These aren't just accusations anymore. They're documented facts. Thomas's hand moves toward his gun, but Jim is faster. "Don't. You're choosing her over your own kind," Thomas snarls. "I'm choosing right over wrong, something you've forgotten how to do." The standoff stretches like a taut wire. 7 armed men against Jim and Evangeline, with the crowd watching, waiting to see which way the wind will blow. Then Sheriff Webb makes his choice. His hand moves to his gun, and Jim knows that words are over. The gunfight is brief, but brutal. Jim's years of hunting and target practice serve him well, but he's outnumbered. A bullet tears through his shoulder, spinning him around. Another grazes his temple, sending blood streaming down his face. But the crowd has chosen sides too. The marginalized families surge forward, overwhelming the gunmen through sheer numbers. When the dust settles, Thomas lies dead in the street, and the other founding families are either wounded or fled. Sheriff Webb, his gun empty, raises his hands in surrender. "This isn't over," he says. "Yes," Evangeline replies quietly. "It is." 6 months later, Beaumont is a different town. The Evangeline Washington School for All Children stands where the old courthouse used to be, its doors open to every child regardless of color or class. The building is modest but proud, funded by the Caldwell fortune, now the Washington fortune, as it should have been all along. Jim stands in the doorway, watching Evangeline teach a class of eager young faces. His arm is still weak from the bullet wound, but his heart is stronger than it's ever been. He's no longer the richest man in town. That honor belongs to Evangeline now, but he's richer in ways that matter. The other founding families have either fled or been forced to make restitution. The truth, once unleashed, proved impossible to contain. Federal investigators arrived within weeks, drawn by the evidence Evangeline and Jim provided. Justice, long delayed, finally came to Beaumont. "Mr. Caldwell?" A small voice interrupts his thoughts. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, tugs at his sleeve. "Miss Washington says you have a story to tell us." Jim looks at Evangeline, who smiles and nods. "About the old days," she says. "About how things used to be, and why they had to change." He takes a seat among the children, these bright young faces that represent the future Evangeline envisioned, and he begins to tell them the truth, all of it, the ugly and the beautiful, the shameful and the redemptive, because that's what love really is, he's learned. Not the shallow conquests of his past, but the deep commitment to truth, to justice, to building something better from the ashes of what came before. Outside, the Texas sun shines down on a town transformed. The roses still bloom where his father's house once stood, but now they're tended by children who know their history and are determined to write a better future. And in the evening, when the school day is done, Jim and Evangeline walk among those roses together. Two people who found love not in spite of the truth, but because of it. The rancher who once changed women like the seasons has finally found the one woman worth changing for. And in changing, he's discovered not just love, but redemption. Years later, when people tell the story of Beaumont's transformation, they'll speak of the rancher who gave up everything for love and the teacher who turned blood money into hope. They'll talk about the day the truth came to town and how it changed everything. But those who were there, who lived through it, know the real story. They know it wasn't just about love or justice or redemption. It was about the courage to face the truth, no matter how painful, and the strength to build something better from the ruins of the past. And in the end, that's the only story worth telling. Thank you for watching this tale of love, redemption, and the power of truth in the Old West. If you enjoyed this story of how one man's journey from shallow conquest to deep love transformed an entire town, please subscribe to our channel for more epic Western romances. Next week we'll explore another tale of forbidden love on the frontier in The Preacher's Daughter and the Outlaw's Heart. A story that will challenge everything you think you know about good and evil in the Wild West. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss it, and let us know in the comments what Western romance you'd like to see next.